We're going to go a little bit on a lighter note. We mentioned earlier clients sometimes being unreasonable in choosing when to reach out to their attorneys. We're going to get into the unreasonable clients a little bit. With clip number 2, we have something that hopefully will make you laugh a little bit.
Hey, look who's here.
Hello, Berg.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. So, Berg, I was talking to Cheryl, and she told me that a friend of hers went to high school with you.
Really?
Yes. I believe the name of the high school was St. Christopher's.
St. Christopher's, that's correct. That is my alma mater, yes.
Didn't know that they took Jews at St. Christopher's.
Oh, well, they don't. I mean, why would they, you know? Oh, I'm not Jewish.
Oh, you're not.
Did you think I was Jewish?
Yes, I did.
Because of Berg.
Yes, because of Berg.
Because of Berg,
Yes.
yeah. I've often wondered, you know, would people really think that?
Yes, and you did nothing to perpetuate that, did you?
Well, no, I mean, well, I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, how about on my birthday? Mazel tov, Larry.
Well, you're Jewish.
Yeah.
That's respectful.
On the high holy days, I said, hey, you going to Templeberg? And you went, no.
Right, because I'm not Jewish, so
Yeah.
why would I go to Temple?
Right, like I'm a Jew, but not a practicing Jew.
Oy, Larry with this.
Oi, again, see?
It's an expression.
It's an expression.
It's an expression that
What
people
is this
use.
thing? A shofar. Why is this on your desk?
People give me gifts. They'll give me like that for my desk or the mezuzah that's on the door.
What are you, by the way?
I'm Swedish.
I got a Swede lawyer. She's going to get everything.
You got a good lawyer. You got the best lawyer, Larry.
Sorry, Berg.
It's a Shonda, Larry.
I got Sweden.
When we talk about unreasonable clients or clients that are just a little out there, I want to start in a little bit of a progressive place. You know, the world is changing. People have agendas, politically driven, emotionally driven, whatever they may be. And when clients want to start dictating policy, we're talking large clients, corporate clients, want to start dictating policy or want to interview firms based on corporate policy. Where is the boundary between where the law firm here, you're the client, or the client starts saying, well, how do you guys handle this political, ideological, whatever idea that's out there, when they start wanting to interfere with firm issues or what percentage of your attorneys are X or Y or Z? What's the balance between running a practice and allowing the clients to, so to say, influence who you hire, who you fire, how you handle whatever issues it is? What kind of cups do you have in the lunchroom? What kind of straws do you allow? Soda, whatever the issues may be. Where do we go from here? Christine, I'll let you start.
Well, I don't think it's a secret in the world of employment law that when clients have a sex harassment case, they prefer a woman on the team. When they have a race case, they prefer a person of color on the team. That sort of comes with the territory of trying to hire a team that they think will better understand the issues and relate to those persons who may or may not ultimately be on a jury.
That would happen in divorce as well. There's a lot of that
Absolutely,
goes on too.
absolutely. And so, you know, where does it stop? I don't have a problem with a corporate client coming to me with a specific type of case. I have one now where it's an Orthodox Jew who brought a religious discrimination case, and they asked if a Jewish person could work on the case because they felt the Jewish person would better understand the issues presented. I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem
Not a
with that.
Swede, not a Swedish.
Not a Swedish
No.
Jew. I think that's okay. I think where you find issues today is that there are, especially with big companies, there are now quotas, or they only get certain amount of points if they send the work to a minority-owned firm or a woman-owned firm, or they insist that, you know, 20% of the people who bill on their files need to be a woman, not because they think it's better for the case, but because they think it's better for them to get more points. and for them to help women or help minorities. I'm not sure everybody's in it for the right reasons, Rabbi, but I do think that's part of corporate America today.
Warren, what's with these points? I'm not familiar with these.
Yeah,
points.
It's interesting that you raise it in those terms, Christine, only because I understand some of the clients will do those things. I don't want to say it's a right, wrong issue, but for the wrong reasons. On the other hand, I will say this, I think a lot of what's going on in the legal marketplace on these issues, you use the word progressive, Rabbi. I mean, clients telling you, hey, we love working with you. We think you guys are great. You've never let us down. But starting next year, if you can't deliver us, different demographics on our matters than the way you've currently staffed them, we're not gonna be able to use you anymore. So that's good. I think on the good, bad scale, I think that's a good reason for clients to put that kind of pressure on a law firm. I think law firms left to their own devices, not all, I'm overgeneralizing, but that's okay, would just bill their hours and ignore such things going on in the marketplace. And sometimes it's the clients that pay the bills that have to drag them along. And I think on balance, that could be a good thing, but it is a thing. It's definitely, moving in that direction. You talk about there's Mansfield rules and there's all these things out there that law firms either better get on the train, or as a client of mine used to say, be on the tracks, because it's happening. And the good old way of doing things in some people's minds just isn't going to cut anymore in the legal marketplace. And so things are going to have to move.
Heidi, what are you seeing?
Well, I mean, to Warren's point, there was the status quo for a very long time. I mean, on average, I think equity partners across law firms in the US was, stagnated around 17% for a very, very long time. And so to think that firms in and of their own motivation are going to make the changes that are necessary even for gender diversity, let alone other kinds of diversity. Well, the data just didn't bear it out. It wasn't until clients started pushing for it that people decided to take it seriously. So in that regard, I think it is helpful to have pressure from clients. That said, it has to be done really thoughtfully. The data that I was mentioning earlier, where women are spread across so many different teams, they're in demand. There aren't very many of them, and so what happens is they sort of get, as one person said, peanut buttered, sort of spread very thinly across a lot of teams. And that doesn't have good outcomes for the client, for the firm, for the women themselves. They get pulled in many directions. They don't get to do the real heart of what's at the core of that case. They are overburdened, they're stressed, they don't have great learning opportunities. And so clients who simply insist on, we need X number of hours or X number of people of a certain kind on our case, that might backfire. And so I think that we have to be really thoughtful and not be ruled by the numbers alone. We have to ask what's behind them, how is it working, and what objective are we really trying to accomplish here? And will the rules that are put in place or the demands that are made, are they actually going to get us where we want to go? So all said, I think it's a very nuanced issue. I'm glad that somebody's taking a stand and saying how important this is. And let's make sure the actions that we're taking are really pushing us in the right direction.
So Judge, you're a forward-thinking innovator. What can we do? We've identified a problem here. Looking ahead towards the future, the young women of tomorrow, give me some solutions.
So I have to be very careful with this topic. As a judge, I have to be very careful. I don't talk about laws, public policy, issues like that, which may end up in my courtroom one day. All I could say, though, is that the fact that I did make it to public office is thanks to, the grace of God, but because of the whole gestalt of where we are today, I had this opportunity. And the fact that I could get up and speak and share about my background and my religious beliefs is thanks to the credit of our great society. It all goes back to our founding fathers, and we've moved so far. So I think ultimately that it's good, and with change always comes a bit of discomfort. but I think that ultimately it is a good thing. I don't think I could say more than that. I'm sorry, Rabbi.
That's perfectly fine, perfectly fine. And from the Jewish perspective, we have the founding fathers and the founding mothers, got the patriarchs and the matriarchs, and all of them had a very important role in getting us to this point. One more point I want to get to in terms of clients not influencing corporate policy within a firm, but just being difficult and being big clients. And at what stage do often clients that are difficult are not difficult to the people that are ultimately benefiting from the equity of their accounts? You know, they're being difficult to the lower level people within a firm. And at what stage do you say, well, they're a big client, you have to put up with some stuff? And at what point do you say, forget it, it's just not worth it? Christine, give us a little, you're an employment lawyer, help us out.
I will go back to the judge, and she said, we all have to live up to our values. And we have all had those clients. They mistreat younger lawyers. Sometimes they mistreat older lawyers. They're just not nice people. They have unrealistic demands. They don't listen carefully. They don't listen at all. And under those circumstances, you have to value your values. And your values are, I treat my group with dignity and respect, and I expect my clients to do the same. And if they can't do that, they can't be my client. Have I had that conversation? I have.
How did it go?
It doesn't usually go well. Okay. But you have to live up to your values. There's not a client that's worth being mistreated, whether they're mistreating me or they're mistreating someone below me. I mean, I had a client who was mistreating my assistant. All she does is answer the phone. She doesn't need somebody to get on her case. And I finally said to him, you know what? You could call my cell phone. Here's the number. Don't call her, because she really doesn't need to be yelled at every day. And he got over it and called my cell phone and didn't bother her anymore. But I think you have to have your values. You have to know where they are, and you have to live by them. And if you do, those clients will be few and far between, because they really are few and far between. I mean, we all like to talk about them, but there's not that many of them. There's a few.
Warren,
We can name
what have
them.
you seen?
I agree. There's not that many,
Right.
but they're out there. And, you know, every now and then the issue pops up, not so much with the relationship partner who's on that matter, because it's, you know, up to a certain degree, if they want to take that kind of beating, it's okay. But what happens is it never stays there, right? So the beating starts to proliferate throughout the group of people that are handling those matters, and it ultimately, you know, results in a lot of unhappy lawyers working for a miserable client. And it's not. We've had to have the conversations. We've had to separate from clients over issues like that. It's not pleasant. There's economic issues and there's compensation issues that are, you know, underneath that. And those are all, you know, things that you have to navigate. In the end of the day, you know, the firm makes the decision and everybody gets on the same page. It's not as much of that part of it, which is the dicey part of it. It's not so much an issue for firms like mine or firms like Christine. When you have a smaller firm, when you have a boutique firm, or when you have a solo practitioner who is really dependent upon the revenue from a particular client, and the client is miserable, or the client is pushing you to do things that you know you should not do.
And
those are where the dicey
and the
issues
client
come in.
knows how dependent you are on their income.
Exactly.
Right.
So listen, you know, there's great things about being in a large firm, and there's not so great things. That's one of the great things, is that, you know, we don't have to be beholden to him. But I really feel for the smaller firms who have to take a lot more stuff. I'll use the word stuff than we would ever take at our firm, because they're dependent on that. And it's not only an economic issue, but it sometimes goes borderline ethical if you have the really wrong characters on your roster that push you to do things that you shouldn't do.
Judge, in terms of, actually Heidi and then the judge. I'll do judge first. Judge, in terms of dealing with unreasonable people in your courtroom, do you have any sort of strategy or any type of, I'm sure some people are pleasant and some not as much, but when things get a little hot or dicey, do you have any words you can use to kind of, well, what's your approach to dealing
So
with?
actually, I have a lot to say about the years when I was a legal secretary, a paralegal, and a solo practitioner. At this point, I'm with the black robe sitting, on the bench. I don't really confront that so much anymore. But I was shaking my head when you talk about the solo practitioner. And I've had stories every single step of the way, whether it was when I was a legal secretary, what I had to put up with from certain employers. And there comes a point in time where you have to just stand up and say, I had enough. And whether it was the lawyer who I told him, I'm sorry, I will not tolerate you calling me honey one more time. And I got myself another job. But he said, if you ever want to come back, I'll take you back. But I never went back. Or even in the world of EMS, I deal with it all the time. Well, you're not strong enough, you're not fast enough, we're better than you are. And I have to really fight for, my say, my piece of the pie. And sometimes you just have to tell that person, I will not tolerate this anymore. Or the client who told me, you keep on doing interviews, I won't use you as my lawyer. And I said, well, there's the door. Here's the door, because that's the only way that you really can survive. And the times where I say, okay, I'll put up with this, I'll put up with this, it always comes back and slams me in the face.
Heidi.
Well, I mean, when we're thinking about the unreasonable client, I think we should acknowledge right now that the talent market is at least as competitive as the market for clients. Right? And so if you're willing to compromise and have your staff, your partners, your associates, anyone put up with nonsense from clients, you have to realize you're putting the firm perhaps at greater risk in the longer term, near, medium, long term, than you are by maybe losing that client. And I think we should be much more aware of the risk we put firms at when we send signals that people aren't valued. We don't put our employees first. I mean, the signal that sends, the damage it does to the reputation, to morale, to people's willingness to engage in organizational citizenship and everything you need them to do beyond just the billable hour. I think it's really, really dangerous. And I think this is exactly where leaders need to step up and be leaders.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the last topic. As we do every year, we're going to finish exactly on time. Rest assured, we're doing something different this year as a giveaway, since those of us that have been observing holidays have eaten a lot of challah this past month. We've got something else for you. We will be done out the door by 8:30 promptly, so we do our CLE requirements and all is good. But in the meantime, we have one more topic with a clip most of you have seen. We're going to talk about how the pandemic has influenced Zoom and made it a part of the practice and the challenges that go along with that from the legal and ethical perspective. Clip number 3.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
we're
a look.
trying to, can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow next to this.
And many of us have had those types of encounters, particularly in the early days of Zoom. And we'll get into Zoom depositions and those issues in a moment. I think before that, I want to get into privacy. It used to be when you were talking to someone on the phone, you presumed they weren't on speaker, you were having a private conversation. You didn't know who was in the room. Maybe that was better that way. But now with Zoom, people are coming in and out. You're in a public space. You're on public Wi-Fi. What are the privacy expectations of conducting business while on a Zoom type of platform? People are working from home. Many people are working at the dining room table. You're working at the den. You got documents all over the place. Who's looking at the stuff? Kids are picking stuff up and looking at numbers. What are the expectations in terms of privacy in the past year and a half of working from home? And what are some of the challenges in that field? If anyone wants to take the first stab at that.
So I
Well-
remember when that.
Go
when
ahead,
that-
Judge.
That cat thing came out. I remember my first trial that was on, well, we weren't using the Zoom platform, but it was similar, whether it was Microsoft Teams, but I remember telling my supervisor, I'm just a small box. I'm the same size as everybody else. And it was kind of like very humbling when you're sitting on the bench in a courtroom, you're in your black robe and you're sitting on and everyone knows who you are. And then when you're on, on a platform like that, it was like, I said, I'm the same size box as everybody else. So in a way, it was a humbling experience. But I give a lot of credit to all the attorneys out there who really tried to make it work, because you dealt with judges who were just like same size, a business card box, and yet you pull through. You got to where we are today. So there were many challenges. There definitely were. And in terms of privacy, I don't know what that word really means. I mean, like growing up in a busy house, we've always learned that there always are people around. So you have to be very careful with keeping your stuff private. You can't just assume that no one's listening. And then from a religious perspective, we're always raised with the adage that there is an eye that sees and an ear that hears, and there's a knowing God that knows everything that you're saying. So you always have to be cognizant of what you're saying. Never assume that no one sees, because there's an eye that sees and an ear that hears, and everything in your life is being recorded. As I got older and as we had GPS navigation, it's easier to understand. Yet, yeah, there is the possibility of a being greater than I am that does see everything and know everything. So it's just kind of like puts you into perspective. Always watch what you say. Always be nice to people.
I heard
And
it.
you
I'm
can't
sorry,
go
Lynn.
wrong.
I heard of a preschool teacher that would tell the parents of her students, she said, I'll make a deal with you. I won't believe everything. If you don't believe everything your child tells you happens in the classroom, I won't believe everything your child tells me happens in your home. So you got to be careful sometimes, particularly when there are kids around, as to what people are hearing and what people are doing. Privacy, and Warren, give us a little.
Yeah, I think that the challenge is that the requirements and the rules around privacy have not changed, but the way we practice has changed, and to a dramatic degree over the last 18 months. And so, I think it took law firms long enough to be able to navigate what it means to have every one of your clients' confidential piece of information right here on this thing that you walk around in your pocket. I think that was enough of an issue. What do you do when you have your client's confidential documents laid out on your kitchen table and somebody's coming in to fix something in your house and they're walking around? Is something I think, quite frankly, quite candidly, I'm not sure law firms are there yet in terms of how we're going to navigate that. Now that it seems pretty clear that remote working is going to be part of life going forward, and not just something that goes away when and if this pandemic ever goes away.
Christine.
When we worked in the office, we would take our paper and throw it in the garbage, right? Because you'd work on something, you'd write something, you'd throw it in the garbage because you knew that there was shredders and the garbage was going to be taken care of. I, for quite a while, really was concerned about throwing anything out, because I was saying, oh my God, like, what about if the garbage men get this? And, this is like a highly confidential document. So I invested in my own shredder, which I really get a lot of liberation using. It's just an amazing thing. But I think that it's something we all have to think more about. My husband's a judge, like you are, Judge, and was judging from home. And a lot of his things are on the record. So I never felt it was so secret, but I used to listen in. And I was always amazed. People wouldn't get dressed to appear before a judge on Zoom. They would be sitting on their beds, appearing before a judge on Zoom. They would be like, one time somebody was loading the dishwasher.
Diapering her baby.
It is,
We'll talk about the ones they were in the kitchen. We'll stay over
Yeah.
there, right?
I think you have to keep in mind that there is a decorum of our profession, especially when we're appearing either virtually or in person. And, you know, I'm not telling you have to put the bottom part of the suit on, but you better have the top part of the suit on, right? And there was many lawyers walking around with gym shorts and a suit and tie, shirt and tie, but at least you're showing the same decorum. And I think clients expect that when they are with you on Zoom. They expect if someone else is in the house that you have headsets on. They expect that if you don't have headsets on, that you have a private space. And I think they expect that we're going to take care of their confidential information just as we would if we were in the office, although there are challenges.
Heidi, what are you
Yeah,
seeing?
so I think it's really interesting.
Heidi
when
has
we
the
talk about-
headsets on. Heidi's
I
got the
do,
headsets
I know,
on. so-
I'm playing it safe, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that we can think of it as decorum, and is it proper for somebody to be sitting on their bed, you know, during one of these proceedings? But then we have to acknowledge that they might not have the luxury of a home office, and the bedroom might be the only place where they can shut the door and have some quiet space. Right? And so one thing that I've observed, not thinking about the privacy of the content, but thinking about privacy as it relates to people's home lives and personal lives, you know, that I think has been really dicey at some points over the last 18 months. And, you know, I remember how obvious it was, the disparities that having these conversations on Zoom has revealed. You know, I was thinking about a meeting I was in with two of my clients who they were both managing partners of global law firms, and they did the right thing and brought some of their associates along to engage in these conversations. But you know, both partners, you know, one was sitting at his place in the Hamptons, the other one was sitting at his place in Vail, and they had the, you know, the background on, and you could see where they were in these gorgeous homes. And then the associates in both cases, you know, one was literally speaking from his closet because, you know, he shared an apartment with roommates and whatever, and the most private, quiet place he could get to think was inside a closet. So I think we, you know, again, how can we be thoughtful about what work from home means, and what inferences are we drawing when somebody makes a choice to conduct themselves in a certain way? We can make an inference that they're doing that out of lack of respect for the process, but maybe we need to shift our focus and be much more empathetic to the situation they find themselves in and say that's the best they can do. I'm not excusing, you know, terrible behavior and lack of decorum. There's obviously a line, and people have to have the right intent, but I think it speaks to the need for all of us to maybe figure out how things are changing right now and how our expectations are going to have to shift along with it.
Thank you, Heidi. On that point, it's interesting. I teach a Wednesday Lunch and Learn, which has been on Zoom for the past year and a half. If anyone's interested, Wednesdays at noon, let me know. I'll send you the link. And we had a bunch of people on the class, and someone who didn't live around here had a worker in his house. Someone came in to fix something, and he looked at the computer and said, "Is that Rabbi Lubin?" So you never know who's around. You never know who you see. You never know how that works. One last question, then we'll do a final roundup, and everyone will head out and get the special treat and enjoy. Zoom obviously has its place, travel and all these things, you know, within the practice of law. It will stick around in certain areas that are particularly convenient. When it comes to depositions, just a 10-second Zoom depositions, yes or no, up or down, what do you say, Warren?
I say generally up. Of course, there's a whole new set of instructions you have to go through now that people are not in the room with each other. You don't know who's in the room with the person you're deposing. But I think, you know, again, just to use the example Christine used before about the trip to California, I would prefer not to travel to California for a half-a-day deposition. If I could do it on Zoom, I don't think you lose that much by not being in the room with somebody. Of course, you know, the important ones, I still think we're going to go back to doing them in person, but I don't mind it.
Christine?
I love taking Zoom depositions so long as I don't have a lot of documents. I think they're very difficult to do when you have a lot of documents and when you have dense documents. I have gotten to the point where I email the documents if they're dense early in the morning. So if we start at 10, I email them around 9, understanding that lawyer is going to prep the witness on those documents, even though they're not supposed to, but they will. But I think it's it's easier for the witness. It's easier for me. It's easier for everyone to have the hard copy. I think it's very hard to share a 50-page document and the witness is who has control of the cursor and scrolling up and down. I think if it's I think mediations are great. I don't ever want to go back to a mediation in person.
I don't think the mediators want to either.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're terrific on Zoom but I do think depositions are challenging when you have a lot of documents.
Heidi, Zoom depositions, up or down?
Not my bailiwick. I'll pass.
Okay. Judge, Zoom, anything?
So I'll say that when we do the calendars, that has become so much more efficient. Attorneys can be in 3 different courtrooms in 1 hour. And I think some things are going to remain that way. I think also that when it was during the height of the pandemic, when everybody was still so frightened, and you got to see people in their home setting, there was a certain camaraderie and certain kind of friendship that developed. You kind of saw, oh, you have very cute furniture in your kids' room, you know, or I want to get that toy for my grandchild. Would you get it? You end up seeing sometimes additional perspectives that you otherwise wouldn't see. Like you saw humanity. I thought that was a very nice, heartwarming part of all of it.
Beautiful. Heidi, we'll give you the last word.
On
wrap up.
anything at all?
Wrap up the program. Balancing
Well,
professional and personal life.
So I think that the best that we can do moving forward is to ask ourselves each and every day whether we're doing what's best and highest for us, and whether we're creating the kind of environment where people around us can really play to their strengths. Because everything that we've been talking about, whether juggling or balancing or difficult clients or the realities of Zoom, what we know is that when people feel like they are doing their best work day in, day out, they're more engaged with what they do. They're more likely to help one another. They're more likely to step up and take on the kinds of roles that we need people to be engaging in. And they're happier and more joyful at work. And so if we ask ourselves that question, if we create a standard for ourselves and try to create that environment for the people around us, then I think we're taking steps in the right direction where we really can flourish. And that's the best that we can hope for.
And let's hope and pray for a happy, healthy, balanced new year. I want to thank our panelists very, very much for joining us. Special thank you to the judge, Judge Fryer. Thank you very, very much. Couple of quick announcements. If you are not on our mailing list to get our weekly quote of the week, our Jewish ethics quote of the week, let us know. Respond to one of the emails you got, info@jewishlawsymposium.com. We'll add you to every Friday. We send out a quote of the week related to justice and ethics. There's still dessert. Leave your name badges at the front door. I wish you all a happy, healthy new year. There'll be a minion for Myriv out in the lobby. And I thank you very, very much for joining us. For all of you that are virtual, I thank you for participating in our program. CLE credits if you're in person. If you signed in, you will get them emailed to you directly. If you are virtual, very important, you will get a link sent to you after the event with a CLE survey. You must fill out. The CLE code is JLS 2021, JLS 2021. Please fill that out in your CLE survey if you are virtual. If you're here, enjoy, have some coffee, have some cake, and thank you again for joining us. If anyone had a question for the judge, you can come up and ask it now.
It was a lovely program.